Welcome to Celestial Insights, a weekly podcast that brings the stars down to earth. I'm your host, astrologer, coach, and intuitive Celeste Brooks. My purpose is to provide practical, unique, and insightful guidance to help you navigate the energies of the week like a boss. Hello, this is Celeste of Astrology by Celeste, and on this episode, I will discuss the astrology for the week of March 22nd, 2026. The theme of this week is kicking the hornet's nest, and there are three big things I want you to think about as you navigate this week. The first is that today we have a waxing crescent moon at 16 degrees of Taurus. So the waxing crescent is the first phase after the new moon of the cycle. Each phase lasts 3.5 days. So we had a new moon in Pisces last week at 28 degrees, almost to the end of the sign, symbolizing crisis and decay of Pisces themes. But now as the moon starts to wax or increase, we start to see what was hidden at the new moon where the sky is dark. We cannot see the moon at night when there's a new moon because it's next to the sun, and the sun is so large, its rays cover the moon, so we can't see it. Pisces rules water, oil, drugs, and things that dissolve boundaries. The new moon pointed to something murky, something slipping through the cracks, and now as the light grows, we'll actually see what it is. I'm thinking about one of my listeners who's had all these water problems, and I certainly hope she doesn't have any more. But if you see some water coming from somewhere it shouldn't be, I want you to pay attention and look to the source because it may be becoming visible to you that something is leaking. The sun has now moved into the sign of Aries, and it's conjunct Neptune at 1 degree of the sign. Aries rules fire, war, and it's a sign that is action-oriented. It's cardinal. It's a pivot. Now, Neptune can bring illusions, confusions, delusions, exposure. And sometimes that exposure comes through chaos, and the sun spotlights things. It focuses us in on a story. And so together, these two coming together can speak to unclear or unconventional tactics. Not everything is straightforward with Neptune. We may be seeing something visible coming to our conscious attention about a war tactic at this time. Now, Taurus rules land and resources and values. So some stories we're watching as I'm recording this on St. Patrick's Day is there's terrible fires in Nebraska. And that's literally Aries, fire, meeting Taurus, land. We may be learning more or seeing the impact of these fires. There's cyber threats on banking systems. Taurus rules money and stability. So hopefully all of these hackers don't slip through the cracks and have success. And with Neptune, the attacks could be hard to trace or understand at first. There's already been disruptions at companies like Stryker, which is a medical device company. China is tightening its noose around Taiwan. Taiwan is a critical hub for global supply chains, especially semiconductors, and pressure there can really put some pressure on the stability worldwide. There's also a small town called Social Circle in Georgia that is shutting off water and sewer access to a warehouse that the Department of Human Services wants to use for ICE detention, but the department will not answer the town's questions about transparency, about who's going to be there and whatever other questions they ask. So they shut down the resources. So there may be more stories about that. There may have been seeds planted at the new moon related to these stories or something else, and now a situation starts to take shape as the moon's light grows, and we can see that waxing crescent moon in the sky. Over the next 3.5 days, watch what becomes more visible to you in your own life and the collective. We're seeing the outline. Especially watch where there is pressure on Taurus themes and sudden actions taken in an Aries type of way that are about conflict or competition. This Aries season has so much fire, and if you're ready to turn it into real momentum, join the Cosmic Fire Up Challenge. It's 5 weeks of astrology with me and movement with Charla Goodnight. It's simple, energizing, and the investment is just $30. Check the link in the show notes. We start April 9th. The next thing I want to make you aware of is that we have a first quarter moon in Cancer on Wednesday. The first quarter moon is a crisis of action. It's a pivot. The sun at 5 degrees of Aries is square the moon at 5 degrees of Cancer. Squares are tension, and the sun is separating from Saturn. So first, the sun met Neptune at 1 Aries and then carried the light between Neptune and Saturn. And while it was between those two planets, both of which have malefic or life-taking away influences, there are themes of weakness. There's been a lot of questions about the health and well-being of Benjamin Netanyahu based on the fact he hasn't been seen in a normal capacity since the lunar eclipse. So we'll see if he shows up in front of reporters or something that can be verified rather than these videos they're putting out about him, one where he had 6 fingers. The sun is between Saturn and Neptune. This could be themes of a leader who has suffered some kind of hardship and is weak. Now, Aries rules the brain, and the President of the United States, I think we're going to be hearing more and more about him and his cognitive issues. He called Gavin Newsom the President of the United States 3 or 4 times at a press conference. He also called his press secretary the wrong name. The sun is the leader figure and the moon rules the people. Now, Aries also has associations with leadership, command, the decisions makers, especially in a war. So we may be looking at the mistakes. Saturn rules failure. Cancer has associations with the homeland as well as the public mood. Layering in the Sabian symbols, the sun in Aries is a square brightly lighted on 4 sides. There's imagery of visibility, illumination, and even a kind of arena or stage. Something is fully lit. Aries rules competition. There's an image of something happening in public view. When I read this, the first thing I thought about was a goal, like a soccer goal or a football goal. The moon in Cancer is game birds feathering their nests. Now, this is about preparation, protection, tending to the home. But with this, it brought up themes to me about the global events, especially with Aries ruling competition and the Cancer ruling the homeland. With international gatherings like the World Cup approaching in the US, Mexico, and Canada, the question will become, how safe does it feel for people to be traveling? With the US, Mexico just had the leader of the biggest cartel was killed. So there could be growing conversations about the attendance, travel, and participation, and something may come up not just about fans, but about the football players. Also, this speaks to housing and land. We know there's fire, conflicts, and instability worldwide that is impacting people's lives. At this first quarter moon, Venus is conjunct Chiron and Eris, the goddess of strife and discord, in Aries. So this adds energy around a wound. Chiron is the wounded healer, and Venus rules values and money, and it's in the sign of its detriment. So there may also be talk about affordability around housing prices in the U.S. And there's concerns about big companies who buy up a lot of single family homes and then rent them out. So killing the American dream to have a home for many people. And I know there's talk about legislation to do something about this. So maybe there'll be something positive where we hear about legislation to protect homeowners. In regard to the moon phase family, these 27-month cycles, the new moon of this phase where the sun and the moon were both at 4 degrees of Cancer was June 25th, 2025. This was when the United States dropped the first bomb on Iran and then claimed that it took out their nuclear program. Here we are 9 months later, and we are now in a full-fledged war with them where they have cut off the Strait of Hormuz to everybody except who they decide can go through. So the sun is in Aries, the moon is in Cancer, both at 5 degrees. This is March 25th, 2026. Now we give a couple of weeks on each side so we can see how both of these events are tied to this story. 9 months from now, the full moon of this cycle where the sun is in Capricorn and the moon is in Cancer, December 23rd, 2026. We really may be seeing all that is illuminated by the fact that the United States decided to engage in war with Iran when people have to give their children 2 pieces of popcorn for Christmas because everything is so expensive. Potentially that will be where people are really feeling the pinch and mad at the government, a Capricorn entity, for how it's impacted their families. Cancer rules the family. The last quarter moon of this cycle where the sun is in Libra and the moon is in Cancer is on September 23rd, 2027. They'll both be at 0 degrees. The last thing I want to make you aware of is that Saturn in Aries will sextile Pluto in Aquarius, both at 5 degrees on Saturday. Sextiles are aspects that bring opportunity. They don't force things, but they are the invitation to open a door and do something with intention. Saturn rules limits, boundaries, accountability. It's in fall in the sign of Aries where it does not like to be. So we can see leadership acting under pressure impulsively, pushing too far and too hard to assert control. The president put a picture on his social media with the Strait of Hormuz and labeled it the Strait of America. This is ridiculous. So when Saturn is in Aries, actions taken quickly can have heavier consequences. And Pluto in Aquarius, the sign of the collective and the system, and we're talking about power dynamics with Pluto here, there's an ongoing transformation, and this is slow moving. Pluto moves at the speed of a glacier with the impact of the tsunami, but slow moving changes about how power is distributed, especially among groups and networks. And we're seeing a total shift in power dynamics with, like, Iran now has all this control over which ships are going through the Strait of Hormuz, which has big impacts on the countries like China, Pakistan. Their ships are sailing right on through. And one of Iran's conditions was you have to pay in Chinese yuan. But the sextile gives an opportunity to rein in power, put some boundaries on it, and limited it before things go too far. This points to some kind of intervention, to mechanisms within a system stepping in. I have been saying if they don't pull this president down off this throne, he is just going to keep going and going to the point of no return. And in the U.S. chart, Saturn in Aries is squaring Jupiter in Cancer. This really highlights the tension about all this spending that's going on for homeland protection. Jupiter in Cancer wants to nourish, wants to provide. Now, Saturn says there are limits, there are consequences, there are boundaries on how resources can be used. And Pluto in Aquarius is moving through the second house of the U.S. chart. And there's a deep transformation going on about money, values, and who holds financial control. The Constitution calls for the Congress to have the power over the purse. But we're in a situation where the president is making unilateral decisions and then coming up against consequences, restrictions when the courts get involved. So we shall see what limits are put on the massive transformations happening in collectively around resource allocation and spending. I expect we'll see more cities put controls on ICE facilities or data centers. They could be looking to the place called Social Circle in Georgia for a strategy about how they're going to protect their own towns. We shall see if Congress or the cabinet do something about the president who is causing so much destruction for the American economy and people. And the reason this episode is called Kicking the Hornet's Nest is because we've got the sun in Aries, which is action-taking, initiation, sometimes provocation. A kick is very Aries energy. Now, Mars, the ruler of Aries, is in Pisces right now, and Pisces rules the feet. So the kicking is literal. Aries can be ready, fire, aim energy. And then the moon in Cancer is the nest, the home, protection. It's what people are doing to try to keep themselves safe. And we may see Iran do something that is a counterattack based on what's happened to them. And we'll see if it's cyber or something else. You could be watching a movie and literally see someone step on a hornet's nest. It can also be about crossing a boundary, getting involved with something where you're not clear about what you're doing, and then all of a sudden you feel a sting. And that's where this ties into the documentary called The Hornet's Nest. It's real life footage from Afghanistan, and what it shows is once you're in a conflict, you're in it. You can be surrounded, and it can be not clear and escalate quickly. You don't just engage once and walk away. You trigger something and then it keeps responding. And you can see this showing up globally in the Strait of Hormuz. There's restriction that impacts oil, resources, the flow of money, and it's not isolated. It's rippling out into the global markets around the world. If you're an astrologer ready to deepen your skills and grow your practice, I'm mentoring a small group through the Mentorship Program with the Organization of Professional Astrology. We'll meet monthly for 6 months to explore astrology practices, consultation skills, and building a sustainable business. If you'd like guidance, community, and support from someone who's walked the path, learn more at the link in the show notes. On Sunday, the word of the day is schism. We have the Waxing Crescent Moon at 16 degrees of Taurus at 3:27 a.m. Now, with the sun conjunct Neptune at 1 degrees of Aries, something could be dissolving. Just this week, the president's One of his MAGA faithful counterintelligence officers quit because he said there was no reason for us to attack Iran, and it was done because of pressure from Israel. So we may see additional schisms and factions breaking apart. I wrote down the word mullah, so we'll see if that's like mullah, like a cleric, or mullah, like moolah, like money is a big thing that shows up, or that could be the mullahs take action against the money because the moon meets Uranus at 28 Taurus, and there could be some kind of successful cyber attack that impacts finances or a financial company. Mercury is now direct, but it's conjunct the North Node and it's barely moving at 8 degrees. So it's almost like somebody is limping along, is what I see with this energy. It'll be fascinating if we see Benjamin Netanyahu and he's like literally moving slowly or limping along. On Monday, the word of the day is chatter. The Gemini Moon begins at 1:18 a.m. Pacific time. Gemini is mutable air. It's a yang sign and it rules communication. So there can be a lot of chatter, especially with the moon square the nodes and Mercury all at 8 degrees. This is crazy eights kind of energy. So the Gemini moon square Mercury and Pisces can be incredible energy for someone to do like a cartoon where they have the chatter bubbles, but they're drawing pictures. Pisces rules images, and we'll see what we see on this day. There could be something that is coming out because now that Mercury's direct, it's marching over old territory, and there can be information coming out because it's going back over ground that's already been trampled twice. On Tuesday, the word of the day is criticism. The Gemini moon squares Mars in Pisces at 17 degrees. The moon is conjunct the president's natal Uranus and is squaring Mars in the sky. And people may be talking very critically about how his actions have caused upheaval and a lot of anger. On Wednesday, the word of the day is shelter. Wednesday is kind of bananas. We have the sun meet Saturn at 4 degrees of Aries. So there's a spotlight on some kind of hardship. It may be about conflict. There could be some kind of attack going on that gets pretty violent. In Vermont, I saw a group of people surrounding someone's house, trying to protect them from ICE agents. And there was a big conflict went on there. So there could be something we're seeing like that, especially when the moon goes into the sign of Cancer at 3:32 a.m. Pacific time. The moon is at home in Cancer. It rules homeland, nurturing, the stomach. Somebody may go to the doctor and find out that they have an ulcer from whatever it is they've been eating. Then the moon squares Neptune in Aries, and both are at 1 degree. And the people become aware or part of a story about deception. The sun in Aries is sextile Pluto in Aquarius at 5 degrees. Could there be talk about how the leader is having cognitive difficulties and how this impacts the collective? The Cancer moon then squares Saturn at 4 degrees of Aries, and then we have the first quarter moon. So there's bump, 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 bump. There's all sorts of action on this day. And the first quarter moon happens at 12:17 p.m. at 5 degrees of Cancer. This is action taken, a turning point. There's something going on where the sun in Aries and the moon in Cancer are coming into this tense square. Hopefully it's something positive about changes being made about the ability for large corporations like BlackRock to just buy up tons of houses. may just be a news story about it, but we shall see. On Thursday, the word of the day is discord. The Cancer moon meets Jupiter at 15 degrees of the sign. And this can be lovely energy. You might just feel like, why have one piece of pie when I can have two kind of energy? Now, some people will be facing a difficult story because Venus, Chiron, and Eris all meet at 25 degrees. Venus is the planet of relationships. Chiron wounds and heals. And Eris rules chaos and discord. Now, you could see a bunch of women making some kind of statement that are dressed in red or have like really sharp haircuts or short haircuts, protesting about something. Could be something about fertility rights. The Cancer moon squares Chiron and Venus on this day as well, and Eris at 25 degrees. So there's tension between the moon and Venus. So this can be emotions around these topics could be fiery. So there could be something big about fertility that's being discussed on this day, or that comes out in a Discord group chat. On Friday, the word of the day is provoke. The Leo moon begins at 7:09 a.m. Pacific time. Leo energy is fiery, dynamic, charismatic, magnetic. This is a great time to have some fun, but the moon is opposite Pluto in Aquarius at 5 degrees. So this could be someone gets up and starts to dance or do something trying to get attention, and then the crowd goes boo. Could be something that we see where they get humbled or humiliated. That's something that Pluto does. Like you go to a comedy night and one of the comics is just really not funny. On Saturday, the word of the day is contain. Saturn and Aries is sextile Pluto in Aquarius. They're both at 5 degrees. This has been coming. Saturn moves somewhat slowly, but you can think about how there is this restriction on resources due to all of the war and everything. Something will be done to put a restriction on the forces that want to go to war because of the damage and the deep consequences and the transformation of the collective that is going on because of what is happening. So that's it for this week's episode. Feel free to email me at celeste@astrologybyceleste.com with any astrology and action stories, or let me know how the daily themes are playing out for you. Take care, and I'll catch you next week. Thank you for listening to Celestial Insights. To learn more about my work, please visit my website, astrologybyceleste.com, where I offer personal readings, horary consultations, cosmic coaching, group events, and classes to help guide people to higher levels of fulfillment. You can also find me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook at Astrology by Celeste. If you enjoyed Celestial Insights, please help others find the show. Follow, rate it 5 stars, or write a nice review. I would so appreciate it. I'm astrologer, coach, and intuitive Celeste Brooks, and I'll be back next week.